Well, it is a war. Even before the tariffs, we knew from the beginning that one of the planks of Trump 2.0 would be a hybrid war against BRICS, selected BRICS, including BRICS partners. With the tariffs, we know that it's a war against one of the top BRICS, China, many of the partners, many of the members and many of the partners. And it's a war against the global south and the global majority and the emergence of the global majority and a more unified global majority, a united front, to quote Mao and China again, where China is one of the leaders. The other ones would be Russia and possibly Iran, depending on how it goes from now on. So I started a sort of informal BRICS tour, Danny. In fact, it happened by accident, but now it's becoming a BRICS tour. Because coming back from China, I'm going to Iran next week. And then by the end of next month, I'll be back in Russia. And this will be in preparation to go into the BRICS summit in Brazil, in Rio, in early July. So it is a BRICS tour, in a sense. And when I get to Rio, probably I'll have a pretty good picture of how the BRICS are maneuvering their meetings, their preparatory meetings, the Sherpas, the BRICS Business Council, which are people that I plan to talk to when I go back to Russia. Because now the BRICS under Brazil in early July, they have a rare earth style opportunity to politely, in a very sophisticated manner, indirectly, but forcefully respond to the Trump tariff offensive. Because the offensive is directed against most of them and to a great deal of the global south. And this will include how the models that they were testing in terms of alternative payment systems, how they are progressing. I want to see if there is, if it's getting deeper in terms of the unit, for instance, which so far is the best system, completely different and bypassing completely SWIFT. What are the next steps? BRICS Bridge, which was inspired by Bridge, and we have several BRICS members which are involved in it, including Thailand and Saudi Arabia still on the fence, and the Emirates, and the People's Bank of China, very, very important, and the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. I talked a little bit about this in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong was very much into Bridge. And China could use Hong Kong a lot if the BRICS decide to amplify a BRICS bridge, which doesn't need currency at all. So all this is progressing for the more or less underground. And of course, there is a problem of time because there are only 3 months before the BRICS summit in Rio. They are going to have only one big meeting per month before early July, which is not enough. So they are fighting against time, but at the same time, they have this extra incentive to come up with something really, really strong, which will be interpreted all over the global south and the global majority as the response of the united front to this circus-like Trump tariff offensive. So there are some auspicious aspects to the whole story, you know, and the fact that the Chinese are now very much geared to be on the forefront and start leading, which they were not until a while ago. This is something that I heard a lot in Moscow, that for the Chinese is more important the Belt and Road, the New Silk Roads, than BRICS. Now, we can say that they are on the same level. Of course, 150 nations all over the world that are part of Belt and Road. There are projects like the the South Pacific Maritime Silk Road from the port of Chancay in Peru to Shanghai, which is absolutely outstanding, caught the Americans completely flat-footed in this whole story. For instance, a few days ago, the Chinese sent a very, very important delegation to Brazil to start studying the possibility of building what is called the by-ocean railway from Brazil to Peru and then connecting to Shanghai all the way to Shanghai. It's an enormous challenge, but the only ones who could pull that off are the Chinese. So this is one detail. Another detail, in Central Asia, the Chinese are talking to Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan to upgrade a railway from China to Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and then all the way from Central Asia to Iran or Russia and beyond, part of one of the corridors, one of the Silk Road corridors. So this is very, very important. All these moves of interconnected moves, part of Belt and Road, they'll start to pick up speed from now on, and a lot of speed, and a lot of extra Chinese investment. And inside China, they are not worried about the effects because they know that the percentage of trade from China to the US compared to their global trade is very, very small. And in Hong Kong, for instance, 2 or 3 days ago, I was talking about this. Imports and exports of Hong Kong, which, as you all know, is a mega, the port is a monster. And the whole planet imports and exports to Hong Kong back and forth. It's between 3% and 4.5% imports and exports. And most of Hong Kong trade, over 50% of Hong Kong trade, is with China. So even if Trump decides to, we never know what's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to tariff Hong Kong port. It's not a big deal because they will keep doing trade with most of the global South and over 50% with China itself. So they're not worried. And this will also accelerate the integration of Hong Kong with southern China. Very, very important. It's something that the Atlanticist elites in Hong Kong were trying to procrastinate, but now there's no more reason. So the Greater Bay Area, how they call it, Hong Kong, Macau, Zhuhai, and the cities of the Pearl River Delta, all the way to Shenzhen, Guangzhou, this integration, this enormous cluster now is going to pick up speed. So they are not worried about the short and midterm. And when we look at the high-tech sectors, and then we get to the Made in China 2025 territory, where they are already number 1 in 7 of these fields, and soon in the 8th, and for the next 2 or 3 years, they will be the top on all 10, which was the original plan when they conceived it in 2015. Which brings us, Danny, to the AI front, where we have big news concerning NVIDIA and Huawei. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, he's terrified that because of tariffs, he's going to lose the Chinese market. And that's why he went to Beijing to say to the Chinese government, face to face with the business suit, look, you're very important. I'm not going to abandon you, whatever happens, etc. Why did he do that? For several reasons. Number 1, he's afraid to lose the Chinese market. Number 2, he knows that Huawei is going to take over completely the Chinese market, and NVIDIA will be history in China and in, let's say, in the China sphere of influence, let's put it this way, across Asia. And now the Kirin, how Huawei's Kirin chip is catching up with NVIDIA very, very fast. This is something I would like to talk about in my next and final column about China, with some details from experts, So this is starting to change the AI front, which is the key technological front from an American and Silicon Valley point of view. So when you put this all together, let's say the horizon for China at different levels is not problematic at all, and they are confident. And this was the most important element, Danny, the feeling of self-confidence reflected in the way they act, the way they talk, the way they look at the future, the way they look at China's relations with the rest of the global South, etc. Resilience, a feeling of resistance. Now we are at the vanguard of resistance against this empire out of control. So when you compare this to China in these past few decades, it's a completely different mindset. It's extremely impressive. You start feeling it. And then when conversations develop, you start listening from your interlocutors, directly. I was immensely impressed with that. And the fact that they are proud of themselves, proud of what they've done, proud of what they accomplished. And they are not antagonistic. They are not revengeful. They don't want to, do anything rash vis-a-vis the U.S. They just want to be treated fairly, and they are open for a diplomatic negotiation. This is the key word, diplomatic.
Yeah, and finally, I feel like there was just a flurry of developments, too, that kind of represent this. You had a recent Ipsos poll that shows 49% of people throughout 29 countries, 22,000 adults, say that they believe China will have a positive impact on the world more than the United States. Then you also have recent announcements that Russia's oil exports to China are once again up after a bit of a fall.
Yes.
And then you also have China, along with Russia, really taking the lead on the so-called Iran nuclear question, recently meeting with the IAEA directly. And of course, you had Foreign Minister of Iran, Mr. Ragachi, in Beijing meeting with Wang Yi. And so leading off, and both of them announced a golden era in relations. So you have, again, when we talk about leadership and BRICS' leadership, it does feel like accelerated immensely under the Trump administration. So just in such a short period of time, your comment, Pepe, on this?
Well, I've been defining them for quite a while now as the new Primakov triangle. I'm sure many of you remember the original Primakov triangle when Yevgeny Primakov, the late Russian foreign minister, absolutely brilliant, who, by the way, started as a journalist, as a TASS correspondent in the Middle East in the good old days, meeting Nasser, Saddam Hussein, you name it. Primakov, in the late 90s, he conceptualized Russia, India, and China as the future of relations across Eurasia. He was ahead of everybody else. Now we can say, over 25 years later, we can say that the new Primakov triangle is Russia, Iran, and China, because of their interlocking strategic partnerships. Three BRICS, three very active BRICS, unlike India, which is not a very active BRICS member. And now on top of it, we have India, Pakistan, which is an enormously fishy story. Very, very fishy, which is something that could be solved inside the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where they're both members. And Russia and China are certainly talking. Can we get these two together so they solve this thing, which is obviously provoked by outside actors? Divide and rule once again, India against Pakistan. And Iran, by the way, already offered their services. Iran is also a member of the SCO. And Arakshi already said, look, we have friendly ties with both India and Pakistan. We can be mediators. They can sit at the table and we'll sit them at the table and we'll be the mediators. Right. But the most important thing is that the new Primakov triangle, in many aspects, because Trump is at war at different levels with the three of them, even if he's trying to solve the war that the US initiated, by the way, the proxy war against Russia in Ukraine. But of course, the Trump way, which is a sort of Tony Soprano-like, let's grab a pizza and do a deal kind of solving the war. The tariff war against China. And of course, once again, the threats of bombing Iran if Iran doesn't follow his JCPOA 2.0. So obviously they have their interlocking strategic partnerships. They have the very, very important deal that they signed, Iran and Russia, in late January in Moscow, which is not a military alliance, but it has, as Putin would define it, technical military provisions. They have the fact that even before the negotiations, the indirect negotiations in Oman started between the US and Iran, there were two very important meetings with the Primakov Triangle. First in Beijing and the next one in Moscow. So they are talking all the time, and they are talking all the time on how Russia and China are behind the Iranian position if there is an adult, not breakable by Donald Trump again, JCPOA 2.0. At the moment, we have no idea. At least they are talking, and that's enormous. So obviously, and not to mention the geoeconomic permutations of the relationship inside the Primakov Triangle. From the point of view of China, Iran is a matter of national security, and Iran is essential for the new Silk Roads connected to Central Asia, and then Iran as a crossroads by the Belt and Road from east to west. And the international north-south transportation corridor, which is Russia, Iran, and in this case, India, which India should be paying attention to, because from the point of view of India, this is the Indian New Silk Road via Iran, via the port of Chabahar in Iran, which I hope to have a chance to visit in the next few days. And I asked them to try to arrange a visit to the port of Chabahar when I am in Iran. I want to see it by myself. And the international north-south transportation corridor is the chance of India to have more trade, not only with Russia and Iran, but from Iran to Central Asia, Afghanistan, parts of Central Asia. So the interlocked relationship of the Primakov Triangle is essential, and they are on the same wavelengths. Very, very important. They are meeting personally practically every week. Next month, we're going to have the mega summit in Moscow around the May 9 Victory Day parade between Putin and Xi. And Pezeshkian is going to be there as well. And Lula is going to be there as well. So this is a pre-BRICS summit in Moscow next month. So that's the, once again, the auspicious, in a Chinese sense, aspect of it all, that they are talking all the time. And obviously they are talking towards the nooks and crannies of building the multinodal, multipolar world. That's where we are.